We had about, oh, and just so you know, we are recording.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, hello, everyone. I see that we are having some attendees start rolling in, which is great. We are going to formally start the event at 6 p.m. So feel free to get comfy, grab something to drink, something to eat, just as everyone starts joining us. As we wait for the other attendees to join, at the bottom of your screen, you can just become familiar with some of the features that this webinar has. So if you click on the Q&A feature, which looks like 2 speech bubbles, you can ask a question in here. You can ask it either anonymously or with your name. Either is fine, and we'll be able to answer those to the group. You can also use the raise hand feature, which looks like a hand, if you need special attention, or if you would like to use the chat feature. But again, we'll just get started in about 3 more minutes. And if you have any questions for me at any time that you would rather, that are more personal questions, you can always use the chat feature, which is just the 1 speech bubble. And you can message me privately if you need to get a hold of me. But this panel tonight is all about genomic medicine. So we are going to provide an overview of our program, why it's important. You're going to meet some really interesting faculty members, both at the main campus and at Lewis Katz School of Medicine. And then, of course, we will open the floor for questions. Everyone who's joining us, this session will formally begin at 6 p.m. So feel free to get comfy, and you can start asking your questions at any time using the Q&A feature, which is the 2 speech bubbles. Hi, Sergey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks for joining us. Oh, now we're twins.
There we go.
They're building the library. I'm in the city, you're in the library, and Danny is at Temple in general.
Yes. Oh, we did receive our first question that can easily be answered. Will this be recorded? Yes. This is currently being recorded, and we will send it out to everyone that attended, as well as everyone who could not attend. But we'll get things started in just 1 more minute. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. So welcome, everyone. Everyone's going to keep coming in now that it just hit 6 o'clock, but thank you for joining us. So my name is Danielle London. I am the undergraduate enrollment coordinator for the College of Science and Technology at Temple University. Everyone who is joining this webinar tonight, you are an admitted student to Temple, and more specifically to the College of Science and Technology. So congratulations, we're so excited for you. The goal of tonight's event is to teach you all about the world of genomic medicine. So genomic medicine is the newest major in our biology department. And as you can imagine, it is a huge field that's high in demand right now, especially given the current circumstances. So we're really excited to offer this major at Temple. We are going to have 3 panelists tonight. joining us. And so first, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Sudhir Kumar, who is the Program Director of Genomic Medicine here at Temple. So take it away.
Thank you, Danny. Welcome, everybody. This is really wonderful that so many of you have found the Genomic Medicine program at Temple. This is really its first year at Temple. This is a very forward-looking, futuristic program, which is really the need of the hour. We really need to have genomic medicine in our curriculum everywhere, because now we have understood the importance of DNA and also genetic material that all the living beings have. Its importance, whether you are human host for disease or you are an individual, you're working with veterinarian school, or you are working with pathogens. Every living species has genome, DNA, RNA, various types of genetic materials. And really learning about this is become an important endeavor. It's a blueprint of life that we want to learn more and more about. And in biology, you learn about that already. In genomic medicine, you learn a lot more about it, I should say, in that area. And so what we will do is, in this program, give you a greater introduction to these areas, make you aware of the current progress in this area, and also give you a lot of information about the future of biology and future of medicine in this field from the perspective of genomes. So what I will do is I will just give you an introduction to our panelists today, and also a little bit about the program through a PowerPoint presentation, which I will share my screen in a moment. And then obviously we will be happy to answer any questions you guys have. So here is a screen I'm going to share very briefly with you. And I hope everybody is able to see the screen I have on here, my PowerPoint. So it's great that all of you have applied to Temple and have been admitted. We look forward to you joining Temple University. And so this is just about me a little bit, so you know what I do and my background. So I am in Department of Biology, and I'm a professor at the department. Also, I head the Institute for Genomics and Evolutionary Medicine. This is an institute in which we have faculty that you will meet today, who are also faculty of the Temple University. And my area of interest is looking at genomes from different species, different pathogens, different individuals, and comparing them and asking the question, what is different, and does that difference associate with our behavior, our diseases, our response to medicine, any of these areas? So we are very interested in that in my group, for research and for teaching, both ways. I'm also interested in looking at cancer and how cancer in a person changes over time. Tumors grow, the new tumors form. It's again a process in which DNA, our personal DNA and environment is very important. In addition, I'm very interested in learning and building the tree of life, relationships of species, which is a major part of biology. As you know, you may have heard about many times, many more things make sense in the light of evolution. And that is what I am very interested in building, that pattern and the platform. And if you're interested in learning more about my group, you can look at a little brochure I have online with that link. And because this recording will be available to you, you can look at this link anytime you like in the future. And so that's a little bit about my interests and myself, along with my colleagues that you see here, one from biology department, another one from medical school. We were the catalysts for starting this program, which I think all of you will benefit tremendously from. So the second panelist we have who just joined us, welcome Glenn, is Dr. Glenn Gerhardt, and he's really the MD. So I am a PhD, Sergey Pond, I will introduce in a moment, is a PhD, and Glenn Gerhardt is an MD. And it's a partnership with the medical school to bring to biology department and connecting the two places, which are often not connected as strongly, is the reason behind this program. By really putting you in touch with MDs, that means here having a few courses being taught by faculty from medical school is our way of making you really aware of what's happening in medicine, whether you pursue an MD degree, a PhD, or go into careers that relate to, nursing and nutrition or clinical care or anything you want to do. You need to really know about all of these areas. And so Glenn is the chair of the department in medical school that relates with genetics and genomics. And he has the pathology and lab medicine. He's leading the coronavirus response from Temple University. We are a big university. And he's interested in human genomics and experimental biology. And I have added his URL here for you to be able to research him. And Glenn actively sees patients. So this is our interest in building a novel connection between the two important areas, biology and biomedicine. And Sergey Pond, our third panelist, is a professor in biology again. He is extremely well known in the area of pathogen genomics. He is actually building many tools for tracking coronavirus evolution over time. And he is very well known in HIV research. And he develops informatics tools, software, methodologies. And this is sort of a breadth of faculty that you will meet at Temple University when you come here. This is the kind of research that you can be exposed to. Because when you come to an undergraduate school to be a bachelor's in any degree, you really want to meet with the top of the line research faculty who can then guide you and teach you. So we all teach actively courses in this area at Temple as undergraduate courses. So that Sergey is an important key member of that group, and he teaches the course in genomics and medicine also. So what is genomic medicine? It's something I don't really have to tell you, but just give you a perspective of, it has all the buzzwords we're interested in: next generation, people's genomic information, pathogens, coronavirus. Every day you hear a new variant has been found. We can tell you why that is so. We can also tell you how you track that. Ultimately, many diseases that we have a cause in DNA. Some is environment, some is diet, but there is a lot of ultimate causes for disease and health are in our DNA and in the pathogen DNA. The concepts of personalized medicine, population health, these are all tied to really genomic medicine to a large extent. And then obviously, if from genomes we can predict what diseases, what problems, what sufferings we might have in the future, we can prevent them, we could diagnose some diseases, and we can treat them better. And so ultimately, genomic medicine is about healthy living, longer living, and better care. And I'm sure some answers Glenn will tell you how exactly this is happening, but this is happening all over the world, in cancer, in HIV, in many areas in medicine, research as well as clinical care. Genomes are being used extensively. It is not one of those far-fetched dreams that we used to have a long time ago. Now we are there already, and we want you to be aware of all of that. And why should you do a bachelor's degree in genomic medicine? Well, first of all, the best part is you get everything you will get in biology, because we have all of those courses. In addition, we give you many other core courses in which you will start to learn about genomes and role in disease. You can prepare for research careers and medical careers focused on genomic medicine. You'll be at the vanguard. There aren't that many undergraduate programs. Actually, there are none with the name genomic medicine anyway, that will give you such knowledge in biology, computers, data, and evolution. These are key areas. So the courses that you will do, I just want to let you know, on the right side, you see Genomic Foundations of Medicine. It will teach you about diseases, genes, and mutations. And Glenn Gerhardt plans to teach this course from the medical perspective. This is not from the perspective of just a biology department perspective. Pathophysiology of genomic medicine. What kind of cellular and physiological effects do genes and mutations have? I don't know of any undergraduate program where you are learning that as a required part of a program. And then, I teach genomic evolutionary medicine. Believe me, this class has a long waiting list all the time. This is, everybody wants to do it because you will learn about how our evolutionary heritage, which would be our family members, our ethnic group, our geography, where we come from, our species, how they impact our disease, our health. And of course, in this program, you get to do research undergraduate research programs at Temple that exist. So essentially, you have the best of all worlds. You have the whole world, plus you have best of many other things. So this is what I feel excited about this particular program, what I think every student should pursue who is interested in genomes and medicine. And this is a program that will also prepare you for pre-med, because there's a pre-med track where you can do pre-med, a couple of pre-med requirements. Also, it prepares you for regular PhD research or master's level research, or directly actually after genomic medicine program, you can go into work in companies that may now be gearing up to serving the need for genomic medicine in the field. So this is, in our view, more employable in addition to what biology provides. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Danny to let you guys ask questions, but you can ask them through chat or ask to be unmuted. And this program is out there. I'm happy to answer questions as Sergey and Glenn. So Danny, over to you, and I will close this screen share.
Great. Thank you so much for that overview. That's super helpful. So students, be sure to start submitting your questions. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. It just looks like two little speech bubbles. So you can ask in there. You can either ask your question anonymously, or you can ask it using your name. You could also use the chat feature to message your question privately to me. So just to get things warmed up, I would love to hear from our other panelists. So Dr. Gerhardt and Dr. Pan. So Dr. Gerhardt, thank you for joining us. Just from, I think that these students are probably so excited to hear from someone at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine. So could you provide a little perspective about why it was important for you to be involved with this program and what you think it does for students who want to go into medical school?
Sure. So one of the sort of hallmarks of my career has been I've had many undergraduates come through my lab. And many of them were either interested in professional school or graduate school or employment in the biotech pharma area. And many were biology majors, and I'd have to sit them down and give them my biology major talk, which was biology really is not a kind of major to really prepare you well for those sorts of fields. And so I think, and Dr. Kumar has had this conversation with me many times, and I tried to get the students to think about sort of what kind of skills, biochemistry, genetics, something that is a little more specific and sort of that they could leverage better than the great horde of bio majors that the world produces every year. And I think genomic medicine kind of, as we talked, kind of this major grew out of that sense of there's a vacuum for students who want to do something in biology, but have more of a sort of a practical focus, and not even practical, because you can do very theoretical. And I must tell, I actually envy all of you right now who are considering genomic medicine as an undergraduate major, because, back when certainly Sudhir and I were in training, I mean, I was a biochem major at Penn State, and we studied DNA, nucleic acids, as one of the 4 major classes of macromolecules. And there was no different than, I mean, proteins were all the rage, but now we are on the cusp. It is so complicated. We're, variants and the differences, and we're studying things one at a time or 2 at a time when there are millions of them that we need. And the computational ability to do that is just not developed yet. It's a wide open space going forward. I just envy. I wish I was at the start of my career now than back before the genome was even sequenced. It's so exciting. And you can look at the coronavirus pandemic as the importance. And here, you see my background here. I put the coronavirus in the center of the solar system, but then here's the Earth right there. I don't know if you can see, I put the mask on the Earth. So anyway, but I think you can see that, we're talking about variants. I mean, this is genetics. We're talking about mRNA vaccines. I mean, this is the future, and it's here now. And we're just at the early cusp of it, which is so exciting. And I think that's why I think this major is also very relevant, because you need to know this is complicated stuff. I think what Dr. Pond will talk about, I mean, this stuff is really complicated, and you really, this is an amazing field that is complicated and needs students and people who are very well trained in. So anyway, that's my.
Yeah, so Danny, we do have a question about oncology. Would this major be useful for oncology? And maybe a lot of you are interested in oncology. So Glenn, thank you for that amazing, point about how we just discussed it and how over time it grew out of this need that we saw everywhere. And so just to oncology question, I will say, of all fields, oncology is the field to do genomic medicine is, because cancer is a disease of change over time, which is evolution. It's a disease due to dysfunction in DNA. Our own cells become dysfunctional and through mutations and change. And it's a field in which there's a lot of data. So whether you are an oncologist or whether you are doing cancer research, you need to know the things we are hoping to teach you. And this is just an incredible, perfect match. In my view, is an amazing match between what your needs are and what we are teaching. Because, and as I said, as Glenn said, that biology department major is great major. It's an incredible major. But this major is a major that has, in which you have to build your own focus. You have to build your focus by taking electives that you could do and sort of go towards one area. But if you know that the area that you are interested in is genomic medicine or genome-based medicine or genome research, then the major that we are offering you gives you a path that still has a lot of flexibility, but it is a path that you can embark upon from the first semester rather than waiting till the fourth semester to decide what you want to do. So, and this, of course, this major has a cohort that is going to be very different from a regular biology cohort. So I'm going to give it back to Danny.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful. I'm glad that you clarified about that question, because so when you answer questions and you type them in the Q&A, sometimes they go away. So thanks for bringing that back up. So we are receiving questions now, which is great. So two questions that kind of go hand in hand with each other that I just like to clarify. So someone asked, since I'm majoring in biology, can I minor in genomic medicine? And someone else asked, how much does neuroscience and genomic medicine, the majors, intersect with each other? Would it be possible to double major in both? Now, something that I do want to let you know is what I personally think is great about CST and the biology department and chemistry is that the first 2 to 3 semesters or so, you're going to be taking very similar courses as each other because everyone needs to take the foundational general chemistry courses, biology course, a math course. So if you come in as a biology major, and then you decide you want to do genomic medicine, you're not going to be behind by any means because you have to take similar courses. So don't feel that you need to put pressure on yourself so much to know exactly what you want to do. However, we do offer a certificate in genomic medicine. So it's not a minor, but a lot of the biology students will choose the certificate in genomic medicine. I think they did that before we offered it as a full major, but you only have to take 2 to 3 additional courses to get that certificate. And you'll take some of those courses that Dr. Kumar had highlighted on his slide. As far as neuroscience and genomic medicine, there is quite a bit of overlap in terms of the courses you have to take. Again, those general chemistry, organic chemistry, biology. And then once you get higher up into your upper level electives, that's when it would get a little bit having different requirements. Now, it is certainly possible to double major, not only in those 2 specific majors, but any CST majors. It might require a bit more time, if there are requirements that don't overlap. But if you're coming in with any advanced placement credits, IB, dual enrollment, that will free up your schedule greatly. And that's when a lot of students will choose to double major.
Yeah, that's right, Danny. That's great. And also, I should say just a couple of clarifications. Definitely, you can go from biology to genomic medicine major after your first year. However, in the genomic medicine major, we built in the first year some introductory software programming. So the point there is We want you to be ready to start thinking a little bit computationally. You don't have to become the programmer. You don't have to worry about that aspect. But we want you to start thinking quantitatively, because the doctor of tomorrow, the clinical care person of tomorrow will have to process a lot of information, whether you get it from on-body, in-body, or other kind of devices. So really, you need to know how to fetch the data or do some simple computation or quantitative work, and you will be a better doctor, better researcher. So if you don't start with genomic medicine major, then you have to take these kind of courses a little bit later. But that is not a big impediment, as Danny said. But if you are sure about genomic medicine, it's a good place to start. If you ever get out of genomic medicine to biology, then all those courses become electives for you. So you don't really lose any time, because genomic medicine is really a superset of biology. So you would be okay. And also, genomic medicine has automatically a pre-med track. So you can take genomic medicine without pre-med track or with pre-med track, and you'll be fine. So it automatically integrates with pre-med. It's already programmed that way, so there will not be a problem.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because that was one of our questions, was how does the pre-med track integrate with the genomic medicine major? So that means that all of the prerequisites needed to apply for medical school are already in the curriculum for you. So you don't have to go outside of your major to complete those requirements. And then another question I can answer quickly is, in our freshman year, will we be able to begin taking electives and classes within the major, or will we have to take all gen ed classes first? So the way that CST schedules courses, and you'll meet with an advisor over the summer, is that we want to spread out the way that you're taking classes, because you don't want to be taking 5 science and math courses all at once. It could be a bit overwhelming. So each semester, typically, you're beginning in your first semester, you're going to take your math course, your beginning math course. You're going to take at least one science course. That does depend on your math placement. So yes, you will get into your major right away. It'll be one of those more foundational courses, but it'll be a science course nonetheless. You'll take one gen ed, and you'll probably take one general education class throughout your different semesters. And then you can take an elective, which is whatever you would choose. But we will help you pick your courses over the summer. You don't have to worry about that. Dr. Pond, so, as we mentioned a little bit about software skills, and someone asked if we're required to take computer courses. Would you mind explaining a little bit of your research that you do, and then perhaps where some of that software would be involved? Do you do work with bioinformatics?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I was thinking about what Glenn was saying, I was an undergrad in the 1990s, and at that time, the entire field of bioinformatics was basically where genomic medicine is now. So there were a couple of programs across the United States, or first cohorts of students that are just going through. And of course, if you look at where bioinformatics is now, it is an enormous field, that has penetrated science, industry, and medicine. So I feel like what Sudhir and Glenn were saying is very apropos to that. You're coming in sort of at the ground floor of something new and exciting. In my view, biology is now a quantitative data science. You cannot be a successful research biologist, or it's very difficult to be a successful research biologist unless you're quantitatively trained and you're able to reason with data, apply statistical methods, and at least use the software tools that other people have developed. So what my lab does, and what I try to involve students with in varying degrees, is sort of understanding how to develop and use tools to analyze these large volumes of data that we have. And you can choose your degree of difficulty. I mean, you can be successful with doing something like learning how to use a very popular statistical analysis software package like R, just becoming conversant in key sort of modules for what is relevant for your research. If you want to take it further, you can modify existing tools to do something slightly different from what they were designed to do. So for instance, a lot of the tools that have come to prominence in the last year because of the coronavirus epidemic, I know a lot of people personally that are involved in this and have been in the news for the last 12 months, and all of them got started in fields outside coronavirus, because until recently, coronavirus was a fairly underappreciated pathogen. Nobody was really talking too much about it. There was always influenza, HIV, hepatitis C, Ebola, Zika. I mean, whatever was the front line. But you can take tools that were developed, say, for HIV and successfully, or influenza, and successfully repurpose them to use coronavirus sequences to apply similar methods. Because a viral pathogen is a viral pathogen, for example, they're all fundamentally similar. They evolve very rapidly, they have high mutation rates, they're very short replication cycles, and so on. But I can't emphasize it enough. I think in order for you to be successful in genomics and medicine, you need to have very strong quantitative skills. You need to be able to reason quantitatively. You need to be able to deal with a deluge of information. I need to be able to critically decide whether it's relevant for you, which information impacts your practice or your day-to-day decision. And, just even to understand what's in the literature requires significant computational acumen.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful and helpful. I see, Dr. Kumar, that you're answering some questions in the Q&A. Do you want to just read your responses out loud, just in case they don't see them?
So I think one question that is very interesting question that Glenn would be amazing to answer before I answer some little simple questions is, Glenn, one student is asking that what are some of the advances that we need in order for genomic practices to be used in more clinical settings? And they assume that cost would be a major factor. What do you think?
So surprisingly, until about probably 3 or 4 years ago, cost was a major barrier. That has gone away. One can do all sorts of different types of genomic analyses, whether it's prenatal screening of or screening a pregnant woman's blood for the baby's DNA to see if there's any genetic anomalies in the baby. So there's no longer, it's all just a tube of blood from mom, which is now standard of care clinical practice in the last 2 years. Whole genome sequencing of newborns, gene panels now cost about $100 out of pocket, if not lower. The actual major barrier is the data needed to support using it in medicine. Medicine is a very, very, very conservative field and moves very slowly. What you're seeing now, so in the beginning of the race for vaccines, you heard about it takes 4 or 5 years minimum for a vaccine or longer. And those are the sorts of barriers across the field of medicine that are still in place. But it's the science behind it. You have to actually have data supporting its use for clinical care. And that's, I think, the biggest barriers. We just don't have that yet. And I can tell you, most physicians, even ones in medical school right now, or medical students, they don't know genetics. They just don't. They look to anybody who's got knowledge base, because as Dr. Pond and Dr. Kumar were saying, the tools are you're not trained in them. You don't know how to use them. The databases, the amount of data is large. Unless you have some training in it, it's just overwhelming. You look to somebody else to help you. So that's another barrier. We just don't have enough sort of knowledgeable people. But that's going to change, and especially with technology. But cost is actually surprisingly not the big factor that it was 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, great. So the answer that, Glenn, the next thing to say about that would be, if you plan to go into research or do an MD, PhD, this is the field to be in, because there is such a tremendous need for individuals in this area to do all of that. And I think it's not the cost, it really is personnel and knowledge. So what we hope to do is, by giving you 3 or 4 or 5, in this case, 4 or 5 really interesting courses that usually are not part of biology curriculum, and a cohort, you will become one of the early adopters of genomic medicine at the undergraduate level and be leaders in the future. And so we want to prepare leaders and not just one of many. And so this is where you are at.
Great. Thank you so much. So this would be a question, I think, for Dr. Pan and then Dr. Kumar. Can you just talk a little bit about the undergraduates that you see, whether they work in your lab or in labs within iGEM, and kind of what type of experience they can get as undergrads, and then why that would be important, whether they want to go to professional school, graduate school, or just in the industry?
Great. So that actually is a great question. And let me answer that very quickly. And then I will ask Sergey if he has undergraduate he's working with. Sergey has a large group of people working on lots of cool things. But I would tell you is that I have been working with undergraduates every year. And many of my undergraduate students go to medical school doing MD, PhD. And what they do is, for example, there's one student that also Glenn knows about, Karen Gomez, who worked with me as an undergraduate student, joined my lab as a sophomore. And over the next 3 years, she published 2 papers. She became the expert in cancer biology or tumor genomics, and went on to do an MD, PhD. And she could get into the top schools because she had this knowledge base that no other undergrads had. And this is just one example. I have many, many examples, actually starting for the last 15 years, that the students working with us in the research, learning about genomics, learning about data, learning about how to handle some data, and then learning about scientific practice were some of the reasons why they got into the top schools from all the way from Harvard, Columbia, Yale, Johns Hopkins, Baylor. And we thought, why don't we offer essentially the same experience to a larger cohort of people through genomic medicine program? So the genomic medicine program is really replicating that success that I feel we had in preparing students for the next generation. And that is where I would tell you you are at. And right now I have, maybe 10 undergraduates working with me this year. And last year was 15, and they're all doing really well. And it's incredible. And many of them are freshmen and sophomores, and some are juniors. So the experience that they gained and you will gain in this degree program, in addition to research you might do, is going to move you forward quite a bit, in my opinion. And Sergey, you want to say something more about that?
Yeah, as far as the experience that undergrads can have in a computational lab like mine, I'm sort of scanning the questions, and I would like to just point out that in genomic medicine, a lot of the work, to echo what Glenn was saying, data generation is no longer the problem. It's automated in many cases, and it's it's commoditized in the sense that it's cheap and standardized. So getting data is not the problem. Really, it's more, what do you do with these data? So a lot of the cost, both in terms of, human labor and expenses, is now in data analytics. And I run a purely what's called a dry lab, right? So I don't do any experiments. Everything is computational and data analysis based. So I've had a number of undergraduate students come through my lab at Temple, usually through undergraduate research programs, where they express interest in the research projects that we have. And prior to your cohort, we didn't really have a whole lot of biology undergrads that were quantitatively trained. So I had a lot of CS students and math students come through and learn biology. So what I usually have them do is just basically pair them with graduate students in my lab and put them on in the middle of ongoing projects. So instead of just learning something that they won't be able to translate into useful results, I try to plug students into existing projects. So not only do they learn a particular set of skills depending on what they're interested in and what's available, but they also get involved in actual research and perhaps participate in publications or software releases.
Great, thank you. Not sure if this was completely answered yet, but someone asked, do people who work in genomic medicine often work directly with patients, or are they mostly doing research in a lab with other scientists?
So Glenn can answer that question probably very well, since.
Sure. So it's actually there's a wide variety, as Dr. Kumar mentioned in his introduction. There's certainly a need for understanding genomic medicine, and certainly within the medical training there is Now there are different tracks for medical geneticists. There are genetic counseling, nurse practitioners, as well as pharma, biotech. There's just a growing need across the spectrum, and you can kind of pick your area of, do you want to work on the lab side and the data side? So you can work in, as Dr. Pond was saying, you can work in that sort of data generation side. You can work in where most of the need now is in the data analytics, and then there's the transmission for clinical care. There's the transmission of what comes out of the analytics to patients, and how does that integrate into patient care? So it really is across the board, and you can kind of find your own niche as you go along, and match your temperament and your interest into which area you want to be in. It just depends on what you like doing. If you really like interacting with people a lot, or you like the challenges of the informatics side, the computation has its own unique set of intellectual challenges. And then there's the wet bench lab side. One of the things that Dr. Kumar and I did soon after we both sort of arrived at Temple almost the same time is we kind of set up I have the ability in my lab to generate next generation short read data, traditional sequencing, and now long read kind of data. And now with COVID, we're doing thousands and thousands and thousands of tests for COVID. And so we have that capability of doing, so if you want to get some of that wet bench work, there is that option up at the medical school, and there's some down at TU as well, at the main campus. But the main focus is, what do you do with that data then? Because that's where really the need is how to analyze all the data. But you can find your niche, and there's a wide variety of options.
Yeah, that's right. And so one of the things I will mention to you is that we emphasize a very holistic education in genomic medicine. So not only do you learn the biology that you will learn if you just went to regular biology track, in addition, you will learn about diseases and mutations in a way that is medically relevant. So that is a big plus. In addition to that, we will teach you some informatics, so you become at least handy with data. And then plus, we teach you about how your ancestry affects your medicine, because which part of the world you come from, how your ancestors evolved in those parts of the world, what kind of diseases they may or may not have. Many communities have their own disease types that they are more prevalent in those communities. So we teach you evolution. So what we give you is a holistic view. So with that knowledge, when you go and look at data, look at Google for things, read newspapers, learn about a new medicine that came out that is only for certain people with certain DNA types, you start to think of all of those things as natural, because you are already aware of those concepts, as compared to some other students that go to medical school, do an amazing MD degree, but never were exposed to these areas before they began their MD program or before they began their PhD program. So it is much harder for them. It is a new thing they have to learn. And that is where we wanted to break that barrier. And we want you to go prepared to your MD, PhD, or professional careers that you carry out after your bachelor's degree, in which you are already prepared with this information. And then you can be more productive, maybe the leader, most likely the leader in those areas. I'll recount one student who used to work with me as an undergraduate assistant, doing some very simple data wrangling. And then they applied to Illumina after their bachelor's degree. They got in. Within 2 years, they were at a higher rank than many master's and PhD students, because they already knew what to do with this data. Whereas the other master's and PhD students came in with purely biological knowledge, in a sense, I should say. And then, of course, they went on to do a master's and a PhD at Stanford. But this is what happens when you know something more than others, and you can shine, given that all of you have a tremendous background looking at your scores and your abilities. You position yourself for success. And that's what Temple is about. It's putting you in the right place at the right time to succeed.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's something that's great about Temple and college in general is that this is going to be your time to try out those different areas to see what you like the best. So at Temple, of course, we are an R1 research institution. So we have so many research opportunities for undergraduates. And this is kind of that opportunity where you can see, do I like that, wet lab bench research, or would I prefer being in a clinical setting? Do I want to get a volunteer experience at the hospital? We offer research experiences both on the main campus as well as our health sciences campus. So that would include the hospital, the medical school, pharmacy school, dental, where you can get involved with that. And then, like I said, some students prefer clinical, so they want to volunteer. We also have, a whole student organization that allows you to get your EMT certification and then provide care on Temple's campus. So if you want to get experience in that way. So we have tons of opportunities for you to kind of test out what area you like the best. Someone asked a question that I can answer quickly. They said, are we able to fit in a certificate or double major at Fox? So I can kind of just elaborate. So if you choose to do a double major within any of the other schools and colleges at Temple, which you absolutely can, it's just going to affect your timeline a little bit depending on how many credits you come in with. So if you come in just straight from high school and you don't have any sort of college credits or advanced placement credits, if you do a double major with CST and Fox, you're going to have almost double the timeline just because we don't have any overlapping courses that fulfill both of the majors. So you can do it. It's just going to make your timeline a little bit more than those 4 years. So that kind of just addresses that. Now, someone asked, are you able to get to go into a clinical setting without getting an MD? So the answer to that is yes. But I would love if maybe Dr. Gerhardt, I know you provided some examples, but would you be able to just elaborate on that?
Yeah, so from a doctoral level point of view, there are clinical laboratories that in genomic medicine, like cytogenetics and other laboratories where they are run by PhDs, not without an MD degree, and they are certified to issue clinical results. They don't see patients per se, they're part of patient care teams, and they run the laboratories that generate those results. Certainly genetic counseling is probably the main area where genomic medicine is directly applied for non-MDs, and genetic counselors often are, again, part of clinical care teams. Much of medicine these days, it's all team-based, it's treating a person from integrating, it's called a service line, integrating all across the different areas. So you're part of a large team whose goal is to improve the health of the person. And that's where genomic medicine, you can fit in from different ways. But yes, you do not need an MD degree to have clinical, either direct patient care or indirect.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. We're kind of coming up on our final couple minutes here, about 10-15 minutes. So make sure if you have any burning questions, you are sure to put them in the Q&A feature so we can answer them. I really appreciate everyone who has already asked a question. Now, someone asked a question, and I don't like to pit our majors against each other because they're all very important. But someone asked, is genomic medicine a better major than biology when it comes to pre-med? And I don't want to use the word better because everyone is going to kind of have their own preferences. But perhaps, Dr. Gerhardt, you could talk about what medical schools are looking for when they look at applicants, and then perhaps how genomic medicine, as an applicant might poise you in a certain position.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think my perspective is, I guess, ABB, anything but biology, because biology is just the large number that come out just by sheer odds. It's hard to stand out in the crowd by the number of biology majors. So if you do anything more specific than biology, it's probably better, not just for pre-med. And you have to, pre-med is it's a one track, but life has a way often of taking people into different tracks. And that's probably a better way to view college, is to use college to find your right path. Even though, because when you're coming right out of high school, you really haven't had the experience yet, and you really haven't interacted with the different knowledge areas and different areas to really know exactly, well, I want to go the medical school route, which has a whole set of other issues. So I would say, by the time you guys would get to be applying to medical school, there's trends in the way medical schools view applicants. And I think what's happened over time is that because of the proliferation, as Dr. Dr. Kumar mentioned about the MD, PhD programs, he had a student. In fact, the student he mentioned was a high school classmate of my oldest daughter. And if my daughter would have followed her classmate to Dr. Kumar's lab, she would have been able to do her MD, PhD for free as Karen Gomez did. Instead, my daughter did MD part first and then went to graduate school. So I had to pay for, my wife and I had to pay for medical school instead of a combined program. So unfortunately, she didn't follow her classmate. But so there are many ways to go about it. But so again, I won't say, I'll just say that I don't know if genomic medicine it's new. I think because you were going to have a specific knowledge base, that's going to distinguish you and differentiate your application as something other than the sort of bland biology majors that there's a ton of them.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's about what you decide to do too with that major, not to discourage any of you who were set on biology. You'll have plenty of ways to make yourself stand out as well. Okay, great. We just got another question. When I start going to Temple this fall, how can I get research opportunities at Lewis Katz? Okay, so within the College of Science and Technology, we have a program that's called the Undergraduate Research Program. With this program, you apply, and through this program, if you're accepted, if you do it during the semester, you'll get course credit, so it'll be one of your courses. And if you do it over the summer, it'll be a paid experience. With the undergraduate research program, you're going to be working under a faculty member. And as I mentioned, it can be either on the main campus or on the health sciences campus where the Lewis Katz School of Medicine is. So when you apply to this program, you'll see that there is a very large document that shows all of the faculty members that are taking on undergrads in their research that you can apply to. And on that list will be opportunities at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine. So that is one route you can take, is to go through the undergraduate research program. If you want to get started earlier, because the undergraduate research program, you have to have at least a little coursework under your belt, you can always reach out to your biology professors, ask them if they have any openings in their labs or if they know of anyone at the health sciences campus. You could also talk to a faculty advisor. So those are advisors within your program who can help connect you with different research opportunities or tell you what classes to take. And then perhaps you could even reach out to any of these panelists here. But we do have a department within the College of Science and Technology, which is our Center for Professional Development. And they are completely focused on CST students and placing them in research opportunities, internships, and then careers after Temple. So they can help you find those experiences. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the questions that just came up, Danny, briefly is, does being in genomic medicine give a broader spectrum of options after college? And so essentially, I would say about that is that every spectrum itself is different. If you are doing a biology degree, you can go to ecology, you can go to environmental science. And actually, in ecology and environmental science, people are doing genomics more than you ever imagined. So when you do genomic medicine, you can actually do ecological genomics and environmental genomics. DNA or genome-based biology is everywhere. So you can do all of those. But if you're interested in sort of a naturalist kind of a world, even that genomic medicine degree or major will really help you, because you're doing all biology plus more genomics. So in some ways, you can say, yes, it opens up a different spectrum and maybe wider spectrum. But many things you cannot do with regular biology is you may not learn to handle more data. You may not learn about diseases and genes and genomes as much as you will learn with genomic medicine. So then you may not be able to go into some areas or some careers. In the future, I think genetic counseling, handling of genetic data will become very important, and we will need non-MD professionals for that. And I anticipate that a lot more research institutes and DNA facilities will need people after a bachelor's degree who are well versed in genomic medicine to be in their groups or their companies. So I would say genomic medicine graduates may actually be more employable right after a bachelor's degree than some other type of graduates, like in engineering. You do a bachelor's degree in computer science and get a job working in a company. I think same thing is, in my opinion, likely to be true for genomic medicine in the future. Maybe Glenn can tell us a little bit more about that. Do you feel that is the case?
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Kumar. I think you painted the appropriate picture of having sort of specific skills that you'll be able to that are in demand in a number of different areas. The other thing in the pharmaceutical industry, which is something that, when I was in college, I didn't know very much about, and actually even in medical school, I didn't learn about till afterwards. But it turns out that one of the reasons drugs cost so much is because so many targets, if you will, that they try to make drugs for fail. It turns out that if you use genomics to sort of validate the target, that has a much higher rate of success. And so most of the big pharma companies have now major genomic efforts to make sure they validate their targets before they go and pursue specific drugs. So across the board, biotech, pharma, but again, you can just look at the pandemic. mRNA vaccines are completely novel, new types of technologies that, again, that's also genomic medicine.
Thank you. So someone asked, does the genomic medicine major have plenty of space for electives? I would love to still be able to take some courses at Temple's other schools and colleges. Yes. So the way that the major is set up, and lots of other majors within CST, is that you have a certain number of major requirements, and then you have a whole nother space for elective requirements. So each semester, you're likely going to have room for at least one, if not two, electives each semester. And that's one of my favorite things about Temple, is that we offer about 150 different majors. So you could take classes within any of those majors. And we encourage you to do so. So whether you want to take an elective in something like yoga or rock climbing, or maybe you're really interested in social media, you want to take a class in the communication school or business, you can absolutely choose to take electives. If you want to put all your electives together, you can create a minor. So minors are about a 5 to 8 course requirement, and you can see which schools and colleges offer those. And that would be a great way to make your degree a little bit more specialized to you.
Yeah, that's great, Danny. And just to let you know, I looked at the program once again just to make sure. So you can take electives in essentially every semester, starting from year 2. Year 1, we want you to do a few more foundational courses. And even then you can take an elective as an add-on, because many students take extra courses. But starting year 2, you have an elective in the fall semester. Then the year 3 has electives in both semesters, and year 4 has electives in Gen Ed. And actually, year 4 is a lot of electives. But we would like you to focus your electives many times with genomic medicine, which is like very broad area. Obviously, one should learn about dance and other wonderful things. But in addition to that, we would like you to think about genomic medicine as a field and do those electives. Because, by focusing on genomic medicine, which is a huge field, it may not seem like a big field to you right now, but this field is as big as most biological fields. Or actually, I would say medicine is bigger than almost anything. And it's more important than almost anything. So there are a lot of electives. There are a lot of genomic medicine electives requirements that you choose one out of many, many, many courses. So you can do both things. But in biology, you have not that much focus in any area. So everything is sort of an elective. And you can just build yourself, if you like, which is different from genomic medicine, where you put you on a track in one direction, but it's a very broad direction.
And in terms of yoga, when we talk about variation in collagen genes, we'll discuss hypermobility syndrome. So you'll understand why some people can bend their elbows back behind their ears without a problem.
Thanks for that connection. That was awesome. Okay, so again, we're just wrapping up here. So if you have any more questions, be sure to ask them. But as of right now, the final question that I see is someone's asking, would it be possible to participate, I'm guessing, in research prior to the fall? So perhaps in the summer, if you're an incoming freshman. I'm not sure if you do in your labs, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Pond.
So it's a good thing to do, but this can become very complicated because you really have to be on campus, enrolled, and all these things before. So generally, a lot of students don't come at that time. That's not the favorite time for people to come. But you can be involved in research in every semester, every fall, and actually sort of discussions every summer after that. But I think the college has program for high school students to be involved, and so you can be involved in those. I take students starting from the freshman year, so that's sort of my system.
Got it. Thank you. Yes. So we do have some of those summer programs. I'm not sure if they're available for those coming into Temple, but you're always more than welcome to reach out to any professors and just ask them if they'd be willing to take you on. The worst they can say is no. So, but I think if we're not receiving any more questions, then we can wrap up here for tonight. So I sincerely want to thank our 3 panelists for the amazing insight that you provided. I know that I learned so much. I wish I could go back and be a genomic medicine major. I feel like I would have a lot more opportunities. But for those students who attended, thank you so much for the questions that you asked and for your enthusiasm. Like I said, this is being recorded, so I will send it out to you. We do have 2 more events this semester for admitted students, and they're in April 10th and April 25th. We have a virtual admitted students days where you can meet with other faculty and current students and alumni from different departments, and I will email you about those, of course. If this event has given you that aha moment or that feeling that you want to attend Temple next year, if you haven't already decided, you can make your deposit on your TU portal at any time. You can always email me if you have any questions at all. That is what I'm here for. My email is D, as in my first name, London, my last name, so dlondon@temple.edu, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Someone asked, is there a possibility for an in-person admitted student event? Temple is currently offering limited on-campus tours. They're all held outside. You can sign up for those on your TU portal as well. Right now, there's not any like big events, but there are small tours that are limited in capacity. So you'll want to check your TU portal to sign up for those. But thank you everyone for attending. We're going to wrap up. And thank you to our panelists once again. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Stuart. Thanks, Sergey.